Good morning and welcome to Digital First Info. Today we're going to talk about prioritization of digital official communication. My name is Maija Hiitola and I work at Digital and Population Data Services Agency. This info will be recorded, and in about a couple of weeks you can also find it on our website and it will be sent to participants. So today we're going to talk about Suomi-Fi messages, and if you have any questions at any point, you can join us at menti.com. So just go to that website, menti.com, and use the code you can see on the screen in all of the slides, 57714669. So you can leave your questions and we will answer them at the end of this info. So today's subject, we're going to talk about digital official communication, also the status of legislation for the digital first change, and what the change is about, who is affected by it, how to prepare, how to return to paper mail if you need to, where you can get help if you need to, how to use Suomi.fi messages on behalf of someone, how to use Suomi.fi messages in a safe way. At the end of this info, we will answer the questions you have left us at menti.com. So what is digital official communications about? The legislation will be changed so that digital official communications will be made the primary channel for people who are using digital services of Finnish authorities anyway. So if you are currently using the e-services of Finnish officials by logging in with your strong ID, bank ID, or mobile ID, that means that in the future, you will primarily receive official mail digitally instead of paper mail. Suomi.fi messages will not be activated for you automatically. It will happen together when identifying yourself in the Finnish authorities' e-services, and you will be prompted to activate it yourself. The status of legislation currently is that there have been some delays. The Parliament is still working on the legislative changes, and they will continue to work after the recess in February. So as you may know, the legislation changes were originally intended to come into force on 12th of this month, but they have been delayed, and we will know the new date and the exact content of changes once the work has ended, so hopefully during February, and we will communicate those changes after we know them. So as long as the legislative changes are not enforced, the activation of Suomi.fi messages can be skipped whenever you are identifying yourself online and you are prompted to activate. In the link you can see on screen, you can also follow the processing of the legislation changes, although the website doesn't currently exist in English, so sadly you can only see that information in Finnish. Who is affected by this change? So if you are an adult who is using public authorities' digital services with strong identification, so bank ID or mobile ID, you will be prompted to activate Suomi.fi messages when you log in. Only the person who is using that online identification is affected by the change. So if you are acting on behalf of another person and logging in as yourself and choosing the person you are acting on behalf of after logging in, only you yourself are affected, not the person you are acting on behalf of. The change doesn't affect people who are already using Suomi.fi messages. You're already set, you don't need to do anything else. It also doesn't affect people who don't use digital services at all. So if you don't have methods of strong authentication like bank ID or mobile ID, or you don't ever use them, or you don't have internet devices, you will not be affected by this change. You don't need to do anything. You will continue to receive paper mail just as you have before. It also doesn't affect people who are under guardianship or confirmed continuing power of attorney. It doesn't affect minors, and it doesn't affect companies. Even if you are someone who is affected by the change and you will be required to start receiving Suomi.fi messages, you can always return back to receiving paper mail in the settings tab of Suomi.fi messages. As you may have noticed, when you are logging into Authorities e-services, after selecting your identification token and using it, you are currently asked if you would like to activate Suomi.fi messages. And this is how it will also look after the legislation has come into force. You will be prompted to activate Suomi.fi messages in the same way that you are currently asked about them. And after the messages have been activated, you will go through with the identification and be sent to the Authorities e-service identified. So how should you prepare for the change if you are affected by it? So you can activate Suomi.fi messages anytime you like by going to suomi.fi/messages or by downloading the Suomi.fi mobile activation in app stores. You can also follow the steps for activation while identifying yourself in one of the Authorities e-services. After you have activated Suomi.fi messages, you are set for the change and you don't need to do anything else. What kind of messages can you receive in Suomi.fi messages? What authorities are currently using the service? So examples of authorities sending messages are, for example, Kela, Traficom, tax officials, digital and population data services agencies, many municipalities, and many well-being services counties. They can send you decisions, invoices, appointment letters, and any other messages considering your official errands with Finnish authorities. Currently, we have I think we have actually about 400 different authorities sending messages currently through Suomi.fi messages. In the picture, you can see an example of different sort of messages in your inbox, so what it might look like once you are using the service. How can I read my Suomi.fi messages once I have activated them? So you can use the service on all devices with an internet connection, like your phone or your computer. Just open your browser and type suomi.fi/messages in the address bar, and you will be prompted to log in using strong identification every time. So you do need your bank or mobile ID to log in to Suomi.fi messages. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, you can also download the Suomi.fi mobile application. You will only be required to use strong identification the first time, and then occasionally a couple of times per year during the use. But most of the time, you can log in with a PIN code or fingerprint, so you're not required to use strong identification every time. We recommend using the mobile device so you don't need the strong identification, and you can also receive mobile notifications. The mobile app is available for Android phones and iPhones in the app stores. Also, remember to give your email address and turn on app notifications so you can receive notifications about any new messages through email and through the app. If you are affected by the change because you use digital services, but you can't receive digital official letters, but you would like to continue receiving paper mail instead, you can currently you can skip the activation proposal you see when you're identifying yourself, and it will be offered to you the next time you identify yourself again. If you have already activated Suomi.fi messages, you can deactivate the service whenever you want in the messages of the service. After these legislative changes later this year, you can no longer skip the prompt to start using Suomi.fi messages when you log into e-services, but you are still able to stop using the service and deactivate it in the settings tab of Suomi.fi messages whenever you would like. After the legislative changes, the deactivation will be temporary, and you will receive messages from the authorities only temporary, for example, for 12 months by paper mail. And after the temporary deactivation has run out, you will be prompted to start using Suomi.fi messages again if you identify yourself to use a digital service provided by an authority. The reactivation will not happen without your knowledge, but the prompt will look the same every time. So you are guided through the activation whenever it is required. So this is how the temporary deactivation of Suomi.fi messages works. When you log in to authorities' e-services, electronic messages from the authorities will be activated for you, and you will be directed to start using Suomi.fi messages. If you need to receive official messages by paper mail, you can deactivate electronic messages by going into the settings tab of Suomi.fi messages. If necessary, you can also call advisory service on Suomi.fi services, and they can help you with the deactivation or maybe book you an appointment if that is necessary. Primarily, you can receive help through the advisory service phone number. After the deactivation, you will not be redirected to activate Suomi.fi messages for the next X months. So we are not currently quite sure how long the temporary deactivation will be, but it will probably be 6 or 12 months. And during that time, you will not be redirected to activate messages, even if you use strong identification in authorities' online services. There is an exception. So currently, tax officials are planning an exception to this law. So tax documents will always be delivered to you electronically if you use the tax authority's My Tax service, even if you do not use Suomi.fi messages. And after the temporary deactivation, if you keep using authorities' online services, you will be redirected to start using electronic messages from the authorities again. Again, the activation will not happen in the background without you noticing it, but you will be guided through the activation process in the same way every time. If you need help with using Suomi.fi messages, if the question is about the content of a message, help can be provided by the authority who sent it. So our customer service cannot see the contents of the messages. And if you have questions regarding the messages you have received, you should be contacting the authorities who sent it to you. But if your question is about the digital first change or using Suomi.fi messages, we offer help by phone on weekdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the phone number 0295 000. And if it's necessary, advisory services can also book you an appointment when you call their phone number. So it's also a free phone number, but if you have a calling plan, you should check with your operator to see if these types of official numbers are included in the calling plan or if your operator charges an extra fee for calling them. Also, many providers of general digital support can answer the most common questions related to the use of Suomi.fi messages or questions about using your digital devices. We also have instructions with videos and pictures for using messages in the address suomi.fi/en/messages. You can also find short instruction pages in the most commonly spoken foreign languages in Finland. So in addition to having full instructions in Finnish, Swedish, and English, you can also find shorter versions in Russian, Estonian, Ukrainian, Arabic, Somali, and some other languages. What if I would like to use Suomi.fi messages on behalf of my family member or some other close person? If you have a family member or friend who needs help using digital services, it's possible to use the service on behalf of them. You need to be issued an electronic power of attorney, so an authorization to use Suomi.fi messages in the Suomi.fi e-authorizations service. So in this electronic power of attorney, you can choose how you want to give or receive the mandate. So if it concerns only reading messages or also, for example, deleting messages. If both you and the person granting the authorization both have strong identification tokens, so like bank ID or mobile ID, you can make the authorization yourself online. You only need to go to the website suomi.fi/e-authorizations, and one of you applies for an authorization and the other grants it, and the authorization will be valid immediately. If one of you doesn't have strong identification tokens, you can book an appointment at Digital and Population Data Services Unit. We have instructions online, and also the phone service I mentioned earlier can advise you on how to secure the authorization. After that, you can use Suomi.fi messages on behalf of another person. Under no circumstances should you be borrowing other people's tokens of strong identification or letting other people borrow yours. So you are only allowed to use government e-services or any e-services by these official electronic authorizations, never by sharing bank codes or mobile IDs. It's important to remember some safety tips when handling your business online. So Suomi.fi messages will send you an email every time you receive a new message. But it's important to remember that we will never send links, we will never ask you to click anything in the emails, and we also never send text messages. So if you receive an email about a new message, you should go directly to Suomi.fi messages, either in your internet browser by opening the browser and writing Suomi.fi messages directly on the address line of your browser, or by opening the Suomi.fi app. That way you can see if you've actually received a new message, and you should never click any links that anyone might send you to your email. Also, never click links in Google search results. Always write the full address on the address bar or save it to your favorites. So no clicking random links online. When you are inside Suomi.fi messages, you can trust that any senders are verified and they are the authorities that they say they are. And you can click links and open attachments when you are in the Suomi.fi mobile app or strongly identified inside the website. The authorities will send you all the information you need directly in the message, or they can direct you to continue using their online service safely in Suomi.fi messages. Thank you. And we will now answer some questions we have received.
All right. Hello, my name is Olli Kauppila. I work in the Communications and Marketing Unit here in the Digital and Population Data Services Agency. We do have some questions from the audience, so we could address them now. So, firstly, in the case where a non-EU citizen who has resided in Finland moves away and their strong authentication expires, will they have a way of renewing it, or will they need to switch to paper mail?
You can access Suomi.fi messages from anywhere in the world, but you do need strong authentication tokens, so mobile ID or bank ID. And if they have expired, there's no way to log in to Suomi.fi messages. So if you know that you're about to lose your bank ID, for example, it's very important that you should go to Suomi.fi messages and stop using the service and return to paper mail before your bank ID expires. If they have already expired, you can call the advisory service number and they can help you deactivate Suomi.fi messages.
All right. How can I make sure that I receive my letters on paper?
For people who don't ever use authorities' e-services using strong identification, they will keep receiving their official mail through paper, so they don't need to do anything to make sure they continue receiving paper mail. But if you do use authorities' e-services and would still like to receive paper mail, you need to deactivate Suomi.fi messages in the settings tab of the service, so you can temporarily return to receiving paper mail.
Okay. And what do I need to do if I'm no longer able to use Suomi.fi messages?
You can either deactivate in the settings, so go to suomi.fi/messages and identify yourself using your bank ID, go to the settings tab and choose paper mail in the settings. So it's easy to do by yourself. If you're not able to do that, or you've lost your identification tokens, you can call our advisory services in 0295000, isn't it?
Yes.
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 So they can help you, they can instruct you, or they can support you in returning to paper mail.
Thanks. Next, will this info be available also in Russian or Ukrainian?
We have written info on our website in Russian and Ukrainian. Those infos will be updated. Currently, we have last year's information on the Russian and Ukrainian pages, but we will update them once we know the full contents of the law, so probably in February. So you will have a brief info text on our website in Russian and Ukrainian also.
Good to know. Next, is HITRUST ID considered a strong identification method?
I think currently you need either bank ID, mobile ID, or like an ID card, if I'm remember correctly.
I actually think HITRUST ID is one of the sort of accepted methods for strong identification in Finland nowadays.
Okay. You still need a Finnish personal ID number, but
Yes.
if it is connected to the HITRUST ID, then it should work. Good.
All right, and finally, at least for now, why is it that I can't borrow and use other person's banking codes to read their messages?
It's illegal, and your bank will deactivate your banking codes. So it's illegal to borrow other person's strong IDs or any IDs. Like you can't borrow your friend's driver's license. You also can't borrow their bank IDs.
Seems also like a terms of service thing with the banks as well. All right, that seems to be all the questions for today. I'll give it a few more seconds if more appear. I guess not. So I think we're ready to end this webinar. So
Okay.
thank you, Maija.
Thank you.
And thank you. And have a good rest of your day.